So now we're going to put the power distribution board on the frame. And the frame is going to, remember this is your front. So the frame, the power distribution board is going to sit on here just like this, but it's going to have the arms underneath it. And what's really cool about this is it's got 12 holes that are going to be holding this on. So you're going to be getting each hole that holds each arm on. It's going to all interlock underneath this, and it's going to create a really rigid and sturdy midsection of the frame. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put electrical tape on the back of this. So first let's go ahead and do that. Got some liquid electrical tape here. We're just gonna do this in case something happens and the frame touches some, the power distribution gets wet on the bottom, or if the frame touches it, you know, carbon fiber conducts. So we'll go ahead and I am going to put the plus side on the dot. So the dot will be plus, whichever one has a dot will be a positive, and whichever one doesn't have a dot will be a negative charge. So positive will be on the dot, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this G10 spacer in there, exactly the way it's fitted onto here, and we're going to put that plus in there, and we're going to press it down. So let's see. If only I had something tall enough. There we go. Just want to put a little bit of pressure on that side. And I'll put this on there. Alright, so let's get some solder. Solder on there. Put a little flux on there, make it all nice and bubbly, because I like that. So we're going to let that cool down for just a minute, and then we're going to put a little bit of electrical tape. So while we let it cool down, we're going to put our press nuts in. So they recommend that you don't scratch the board up, especially if you don't use electrical tape, liquid electrical tape. So do the smooth side will be the side that touches the board. So put that through like that. And then you'll want the side with the teeth on it going down into the board. And let me find an Allen wrench. There we go. press it in there. See? Press it in there. Alright, and it stays when you bring it out. Just like that. Perfect. Let's do the other ones like that. Alright, now it's time to put the arms frame together, which is going to be pretty cool. So remember, this is the front of your quad. We're going to start bolting this stuff up. I'll put the long bolts go on the outside and the short bolts go on the inside. So we first have the longest bolt, or the long bolt on the very edge, each of the four corners. You're going to put these little black spacers on them, and you'll see why in a minute. Put that spacer on there, and then we're going to have the XT60 on the left side. Just like they do in the picture. And that's a short bolt. Now we're going to get another long bolt and stick it through. And then we'll just put a little nut right here. And a little nut right here to keep it in place for the time being. Now remember, you're going to want straight, crossed, straight, crossed. So it's going to be counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, just like Clean Flight has it. So next we're going to take our, oops, drop that. We're going to take our clockwise, and we're going to put that one in here. And what I really like about this is there's only really one way you can fit them in there to be perfectly lined up. The lining up for this is just amazing. They had some really high quality craftsmanship with that, because everything just lines up perfectly. And even the space of the nuts, I mean they go on there perfectly. You don't have a bunch of excess nuts sticking out, which is pretty cool. Which, actually, those aren't going to get those purple nuts. Those are actually going to get the spacers. So we'll just screw a spacer on there real quick, just barely. Do the bottom corner, so this side's going to get clockwise again. There we go. Get a little spacer there. Another long bolt. Use a long bolt. Oh, there it is. Alright, get another spacer. And then we're going to put the counterclockwise on this bottom left hand. Trying to line it up with everything else. There we go. Throw that in there. And throw the last long bolt in there. And get a spacer. Or a standoff, whatever you want to call it. And there you have it. And as you can see, here is the XT60 connector. If you hadn't put that G10 spacer in there, it would have been much closer to touching either the sides or the bottom of the frame right here. So that's why we did that. And looks pretty cool so far. We're going to put those center, these are the shorter bolts. We're going to put those center short bolts in here. Those are going to screw into those little press nuts that we put in earlier. And we'll just get them in there a little bit. And putting that final one in there. Alright, there we have it. Look at that bad boy. Looks pretty good. So next, we can actually cut our wires and start soldering them onto the board. Set all these last 4 nuts aside. Somehow I got an extra standoff somewhere. I'm gonna have to figure out where that goes. And we'll just put this back in there for the sake of keeping it closed. Alright, so I'm gonna do these first 2 for you guys to see. And then I'll do the rest by myself. And we can actually cut those a little shorter than I did, but it'll be alright. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to tin the pads and tin the wires. Just move those out of our way for a moment. So I'm still using the same tip I used for the XT60, but that's because I could have used a bigger tip for the XT60. It would have made it a little easier. I used a small one, and you need a lot of heat to transfer when doing that XT60 with those connectors, but you don't need a lot for this, so tin it up just a little bit. Alright, tin this one. I like to put a lot of solder on the pad. And then we'll tin the wire. Make sure you put a lot of solder on the wires. You definitely, you know, if you under solder it, it's just gonna make it harder. If you over solder it, you can deal with it. A new piece of solder. But you want the solder to flow through all the wires. Now, I like to use a lot of flux because I don't like to run out of flux. So before I put stuff to other stuff, I just like to do a little bit of flux on it. Just rub a little bit on there just to make sure you don't run out. Stab it. Put a little bit on the wires too. Make sure both sides of the wires are tinned. Yep, we're good. Alright, so first we're going to solder this side. Solder the power on there. And this should be pretty easy. Just press it in there, wait till it flows. If it'll flow. Looks looks like it won't. So I need to pinch this off. Now I heard there's actually like a almost like a beeswax wax on those, and so that's why solder doesn't like to flow on them that well. But that's just from what I heard. So let's try this again. Not make my fingers get that hot. We're going to heat up the solder on the pad first this time. And I'm just going to coat it with a little bit more solder. I don't like the way it looks like bubbles. Okay, so I've got everything soldered on. The wires are all soldered on here. Alright, so the next part of what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting the flight controller on, which means we have to do some soldering to put the pins on. We need to put the pins on, of course, the flight controller. And then we also need to put the pololu on, which the pololu, whatever you call it, is going to be how we're actually going to power our flight controller, our receiver, and our video transmitter. And the reason for this is because these ESCs are opto ESCs, so they don't have built-in BECs, which means they don't provide the flight controller with power. So we need a voltage regulator, which is what this is. It basically is a step-down voltage regulator. And it converts the power out of our battery directly to 5 volts so that we can power our receiver and our flight controller and our camera. So what we need to do first is we need to do a couple things. One, we need to look at the diagram. Now see, there's a shutdown of a voltage in, a ground, and a voltage out. So on here, this flight controller, this is the Motolab F3 Tornado flight controller, is actually specifically built to be able to use the pololu. These 4 pins right here match up to where you can solder them to it. But you need to use one of these options, and I haven't decided which option I'm going to use. I'm likely going to solder, and actually I need to turn that down because I'm going to have to get a different soldering tip. But you're going to solder basically your pins, and you can have it, you can put it on the bottom of it, or you can put it on the top of it. However you want to do it, you can do it. But you're going to solder those pins. Let's just say we're doing it this way. You're going to solder those pins to them. And that is, of course, not what you want, but you're going to solder those pins and connect the voltage regulator to it. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And then we'll have our 2 sets of pins. Have them like that. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Actually, the pins that they gave us are they gave them too many, which is actually great because that means we can break them off and only use a couple of those. And you're gonna really need to check out the diagram here, and be careful with this because this is the part it gets a little tricky. So we're gonna go over that. I'm gonna show you the diagram of how the board is set up and where the pins go, and then we're gonna solder them together. So we're just gonna put a little dab on there. Alright, that's nice and seated firmly. Now the other side, like I said, let's see, so flat side's going to go that way. The shutdown is right here, and it's got the only half of a or 3/4 of a square around it. The other ones are actually encompassed all by a rectangle. So that's going to be the shutdown one. It's going to be up here. So we're going to solder it right there. Alright, that is soldered up. Good to go. We're going to need to actually give the board some power. Now what's cool about this is you don't have to connect the power source to the actual Pololu. What we'll do is we'll take these two pins right here, which are voltage in this right hand corner, upper right hand corner, and then ground. And these two right here are sectioned off to actually give the flight controller power. So what we'll do is we'll take our quad and we'll just literally take take two wires and solder them to the pins and directly attach them to right here. Or we can attach one right there and one right there. But so that's all we have to do. We just have to attach those pins, or attach two wires, two tiny little wires, which we have plenty of wire left over, into that, and then attach it to here. I start soldering a wire from here to here. We're actually going to set up the pins so that we can use S-Bus. So what I'm doing is I broke off some of the extra pins that they gave us, and I'm using the shorter length pins after cutting them off, and I'm going to be placing them in certain spots. So first of all, I'm going to be placing 1, 2, 3, 4 over, 5 over, and then 6 over. It's going to look better than that, but pins 4, 5, and 6 on the bottom. 4, 5, and 6 on the bottom are going to be your S-Bus. This one is going to be the signal, this one's going to be the voltage, and this one is going to be the ground. And this is where this diagram, the diagram for this whole thing, comes in really handy. It's really important to know we're putting the pins in the exact right places. So let me continue to cut these apart. So we got got the 3 shorter ones. We're going to put those 4, 4, 5, and 6. Just so we can be able to put them in to a servo connector just like this. So I'm actually going to connect a servo connector here to keep them lined up. Actually, I'm going to get the actual servo connector that goes with it, which is this one. Put those in there. Put it on the ground. Then we're going to solder them bad boys up. And just double check. Make sure you double check before you solder these together. So here I'm double checking. We've got the bottom square, ground voltage signal. Alright, we're good. Alright, so ground voltage signal, let's solder it up. And once you get that first solder on there, alright, and those are soldered up. So we've got those 3 pins. And we're just going to solder the other side too, just to make sure we got that good solid connection. Alright. Nice, there we go. So that's going to go just like that. Voila, that's one. Then we're going to have, let's move these pins out of the way. So we only need 4. I only need 4 because I only have 4 motors. We're going to take these apart. We're gonna leave 5 on there, or 4 on 5. Yeah, we're gonna leave 5 on there. So we'll take off 2 and leave 5 on there. We're gonna get those first 5 right here. Finished putting on the Pololu voltage regulator. I ended up mounting it on top, and I had to cut the pins down just a little bit so it could fit. I also put some new standoffs on here because the ones that were supplied ended up breaking. They seemed pretty flimsy, or just not made correctly. But I had a bunch of pretty good quality standoffs, so I just used those instead. They're about the same size anyway. So I did that, and then I also installed my power, how I'm going to get power to the flight controller. I took a little JST connector that I have, and I just soldered it to the 2 pads that were right here on the board. And then I soldered a set of pins here to where you'll directly connect these pins up. You'll just directly connect those to power, and then the power will immediately go from these 2 pins to the Pololu, and then be ready to power the flight controller. So that's one thing that I really like about the Pololu. You don't have to add anything else to it, all you need to do is just add those 2 pins and directly power it from your PDB board there. So just plug in like that with power on the right side and ground on the left. Now I also hooked up all my ESCs to the flight controller, and I did that over here. And what I did, now this flight controller cannot use built-in BECs. It has to have opto ESCs, which only have the signal and then the ground wire. So all the ones right here, which are on the top pins, the taller ones, are going to be your signals, and then all the ones on the bottom, which are closest to the edge, are going to be your grounds. And so it starts over here on 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just took those out of the actual connectors that they came with, and I cut them down to size, and then I directly soldered them to the pins with a little bit of tape or a little bit of heat shrink to make a nice good fit. So that's just some of the things that I did. I also powered it up, and I hooked it up to clean flight just to make sure no smoke was happening or anything like that, or anything crazy. And so all the motors spin, all the motors calibrate, everything works fine so far. So right now we're going to put this piece on. This is a actually really ingenious idea to have those standoffs and have all that weight distributed throughout the center. So right here we're going to put our video transmitter on here, and I'm gonna velcro that, or this is our receiver. I'm gonna velcro the receiver here onto this, and then I'm gonna connect the actual video transmitter directly on top of that. I'll show you what that looks like once it's hooked up, and then the S-bus connection is going to go to these 3 pins right here, because these are your S-bus connections. So I'll show you what that looks like when we get done. I mounted the X4R S-bus receiver to the top of this, and I used 2 things. I actually used a wrap strap, and I used some Velcro. So what I did is I wrapped the S-bus cable actually underneath and through to the other side of here, and then I took the wrap strap and I wrapped it on the outside of this, and I put some Velcro up towards the front here to hold it together. I also put a little bit of electrical tape, a thin strip, all the way around the outer casing of the X4R, just to keep this intact, because that plastic that was around it when you get it in the box is pretty flimsy. So I wrapped a little bit of electrical tape around it. Now I moved the wrap strap up to the front, because if you keep it in the middle, it's going to be putting pressure onto your Pololu, which is actually going to end up putting pressure on your processing unit there in the center. So you don't want to do that. You want to keep those from touching. And so that's why I moved that up to the front. But it fits flush, nice and easy on there. You can plug in your S-bus on the side, and that's what I did with that. I'm going to put some nuts down on here, and I'm actually going to mount the video transmitter that I have, because it's super small and super light. It's the ET200 from Miyashin. I use the ET600 on my other quad, but I bought this one because I thought I had broken that one, and so I'm just going to use this one. It works perfectly fine for short range, very clear picture quality. But I'm actually going to mount it on the underside of the top plate in the back, so right about here, and I'm going to have the antenna coming up through the top that way. So the next thing that we've got to do is we've actually got to set up the camera, to install it and set it up, because it's going to be set up here in the front plate. So let's go ahead and get that part out. And just something to note about this X4R receiver, I had trouble binding it, but what you do is you just you bind it, you leave it off, you hold down the FS button while your transmitter is in bind mode, which I have a Taranis, so all I did was press the bind button and it starts beeping. So you hold this down, plug it in while you're holding it down, and then hold it down for a few more seconds, and it'll be flashing. And then what you do is you just let it go, unclick bond mode in Tyrannus, unplug it, and then next time you plug it back in, it will be bound. It was a little confusing there at the start, but that's what it is. You just have to power cycle it for it to register that it's completely bound. But let's get started on the camera. So here's the camera, the backing plate that's mounted to the camera. You have to unscrew the two screws back there, and then you mount this piece to it. You can use those two screws to be put here in the front and mount these plastic pieces right here to the camera. So once you've done that, and make sure you put the O-rings in between this carbon fiber plate and the actual backing of the camera. And once you do that, the next part is to put on the actual arms, or not the arms, but the side pieces that put it in there, which are these two things. So, and you have to put them on the correct way. So what you do is when you have it on this side, you're going to want it just like this. So that small circle right here is going to go around here, and you'll screw that in with the little screws provided. You're going to have this kind of big, almost a full circle here at the bottom. You're going to have the huge thing on the side, and then you're going to have this cutout that goes down and then comes back out on the top, with the kind of like bracket looking one right here on the side. Sorry, that's the best way that I can explain it. But anyway, so you're going to screw it in on this side with these tiny little screws right here. Just screw it into that hole. And then you're going to put these short screws right here into those places through this sliding thing. And I do it on the bottom because the more angle, the faster you'll be able to fly and go without seeing the floor. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I'll show you when it's completed. So something I was noticing, I got the cameras installed. You got to make sure the back screws on the backing plate are all the way through to put as much pressure so that this fits properly. But here you can see it's mounted facing up. It's a pretty good setup. I really like this mounting setup. It's very, very awesome to have something that automatically tilts it instead of jerry-rigging something like I have done on quads on the past. But so I actually have to redo my S-bus anyway, and so that's what I'm getting ready to do now. I'm going to make my own S-bus cable, because I'm going to actually use this one and another cable that I have to do that. But one, I want it to be shorter. I want it to be pretty direct from right here to the mounting plate right over here. But I also had something connected up kind of wrong, which I knew I did, but I just left it that way just to see if it would run and be powered. But so technically the servo plug is supposed to so signal power, yeah, it's supposed to be right here for the X4R, and so then it's supposed to be plugged in here. So I need two actual servo plugs right here, because I can't use this to plug it into there. It just won't work. Instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these down, and I'm actually gonna solder this directly onto these pins because I like soldering. So I might as well do it. And then I'm gonna take this white strand out, I'm gonna take it out, and I'm actually solder this white strand to the transmitter out pin that's right inside here, so that I can run SmartPort, because that's how SmartPort works. So I'm gonna do that, and I shall come back and show you what it looks like when it's done. So I put everything together. I fixed the S bus. I connected or soldered the one wire for the smart port. The smart port, you have to get into you can either do the UART 1 or 3, which is on the other side, and connect the wire, solder it directly to the transmitter out pin, and then just put and then the connector and put it into the S port pin on the FreeSky X4R. So that's how, and then you just have to go into the settings to do that. Now I've been setting up my video, and I found out that with this camera, that is the one that you buy from the Impulse RC website, you actually have to have a pretty good transmitter. Because I tried my ET200 and it did not work. It didn't have enough milliwatts to transmit the video signal from this. So I tried my ET600 from my other quad, and I ripped it off of there, and it works perfectly fine. So that signal gets transmitted. So that's the one we're gonna have to use. Now with these Eachine pieces, they give you like a wiring harness that goes to the camera, to the transmitter, and then also to the battery balancer plug. I really like to use that because it kind of takes out the need to ever use power filtering. So for right now, I'm going to use that method, and I've just kind of like spliced it down and cut it down to size and resoldered it and all that good jazz, because I'm going to set my transmitter up back here. I'm actually going to have it a little different to where everything else is, but I'm going to just set it up back here, and then I'm going to tape it down. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to put a little bit of Velcro on the back of it, but I'm just telling you all why I'm doing that and how I'm doing that. So I'm actually probably going to use I'm going to use tape, but that's what I'm doing. So, and then we just have to put the top plate on. The top plate's pretty simple. You're going to put this on. This piece is for, well, usually before the transmitter, but I don't have the transmitter extender that they have on the website because I didn't buy that. But you'd stick your transmitter up here. Well, actually, your transmitter, your video transmitter would actually be over here, and then there would be an extender that would go back here, and then it would end up coming through here, and it would fit perfectly. Mine doesn't fit perfectly. And then you could just put the antenna directly on top there. But I'm not going to do that. But you do need this to put if you want to use these antenna tubes. Let's see, where did they go? The antenna tubes are supposed to go like here, and of course I can't get those in there. But anyway, so that's what's gonna happen. You're gonna put the spacers, the 3mm spacers in there, and then put them all the way around, and then use these long bolts that come in for the top set, and then put them all the way through there and actually attach those to these bits on the frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'm gonna go ahead and set this up and then show you guys what it looks like. There you have it, all said and done. I used a wrap strap down here after putting some Velcro on the video transmitter just to hold it in place. I also put another wrap strap around here to keep that cord, that cable right there. I'm going to add one more actually. It's either going to be right here, but it's going to be around this top cable. All you have to do now is put on the battery thing, and I'm actually just gonna cut, well, I don't know, I've thought about, yeah, I'm probably gonna cut a little bit of this off, cut it to size. This is actually just a hair long because it doesn't fit underneath there. I don't think it does. Nope. So it's just a hair long, but all you do is you put your battery strap right here, and then you put a battery on it. And I'm gonna cut these off though, simply for the fact that I'm actually going to put a camera right here, and I'm going to make a plastic mount for it out of I think it's called Plastomorph, but it's really great stuff. And it's, I mean, they're plastic beads, but there you have it. I'll eventually probably remount this up here when I get another cable to extend this up, or I might just get a thing to just extend it out. But for right now, this is going to be perfectly fine. It's a beautiful quad. I mean, it's really beautiful. It's a super clean setup, in my opinion. And honestly, there's not a lot of room to work with. I thought from the pictures, it definitely looked like more room to work with, but it's really not a lot. It's what they did was they made it to have the perfect amount of room, is what it really boils down to. They gave you just enough room to get everything done the way that they had it built, which, honestly, that cuts down on weight, and that makes it really refined, and I really like that. So like I said, I'm going to put a battery strap through here, put the battery on, then you just got to put the propellers on, and then you're good to go. And I'll probably post a video of my maiden flight with it pretty soon. I'm pretty excited about it. It's been a fun build. I've learned a lot on how this thing is set up, and I'll probably end up buying a 4-inch and a 6-inch just to add to the collection, and because I really, out of everything, I just enjoy building a lot. So, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments, or send me a private message, or get in contact with me on my website, or shoot me an email, and I totally would be willing to help you all where I can. So yeah, appreciate y'all watching these videos. Hit the like button if you want, or subscribe to my channel. There's going to be a lot more videos coming out, flying videos, even some gaming videos, just about everything that I do. I'll try to video it and post it up here for you guys to see. So thanks again. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.